Okay, so like it said in the bio, I don't know, some of you came in after Michelle introduced me, but I'm at Soma Tacoma out in Tacoma, Washington. I've been a part of that church for about 12 and a half years and really grew up in that church, at least spiritually. I started attending gatherings when I was a senior in college. And then I had a super, super spiritual reason for going. It was because I thought Randy Sheets was the most handsome man in the entire world, and I just wanted to follow him wherever he went. And we had started dating shortly before that, and kind of wherever he went, I wanted to be. So we ended up getting married in June of 2010, and shortly after started having babies. We had 4 kids in about 5 years, and a lot of people are surprised by that fact, but it was actually intentional. We really did want that many kids. But I was just obsessed with birth. Still kind of am, but I was so taken by struck by the concept of life coming from death. That was just such a profound thought to me. And after having Georgia, my first child, I just felt that so deeply in my body, like, wow, there was this death to my body in a sense, and those of you who've been through childbirth understand that kind of death, but was again, just so taken by like this beautiful life that came from death. And so with each kid, I just was so excited to be able to partake in it, even though, when you're in birth, it's like the worst thing. I didn't enjoy it when I was in it. And, you end up having to raise the babies that you then birth. But yeah, so that was, yeah, I was taken by that early on. Randy became visionary elder of our church in 2013, and then so from then we just embarked on the bumpy, tumultuous, beautiful journey of shepherding a church together. So again, like it said in the bio, this evening I'm going to be sharing just about my journey on reliance on God in suffering. I'm really quite new to relying on Jesus in suffering. I'm really a total novice, newbie. It's uncharted territory. I had heard about it, read about it, even shepherded people in it. And I had, experienced my need for it in the past, and had even had some tastes of my own little bites of suffering. For example, early on, a lot of sexual brokenness in my younger years, a really rocky marriage with Randy in the first like 4 to 5 years. My parents separated and divorced in my late 20s, and then my brother ended up killing himself shortly after that. So again, I'd had some taste, and I thought I knew what relying on Jesus through suffering looked like, at least theoretically. I knew that. But it was in conjunction with having a really incredible earthly partner who I completely relied on during those times. And so I didn't really need to rely on Jesus much in my mind because I had Randy. I could fully rely on him and his strength, and even really borrow his faith. I mean, he was so passionate about Jesus. He had a faith unlike anyone I had ever known, even to this day. And for as long as I knew him, he'd just been different. He was just one of those Jesus followers that seemed to have one foot in heaven, one foot in earth. So I really just kind of borrowed his faith. But yeah, he and I just processed everything together. And God, over time, even through the rocky time, had really grown a beautiful sense of unity and dependency on the other's voice and perspective. And because of that, again, I didn't really feel the full weight of my need to rely on Jesus because I had my love. I had Randy. And I loved having my beautiful earthly husband that I could talk to, get an immediate response back, touch, smell, hold, look into his eyes as we spoke, rub my face against his face. We're weird. We like to do that. Or kiss his big soft lips. I mean, I leaned on him in absolutely every part of my life, and really he on me, and we had each other's backs, man. We were each other's biggest fans and biggest encouragers. He was a really good gift. I mean, my greatest earthly gift to date. But a good gift that was never mine to hold on to. November 14th, 2019, my love ended his life. My closest friend, safest place, fiercest defender, biggest source of encouragement was all of a sudden gone. Just like that. There were signs along the way towards the end, but you never really think it's going to happen. And so there I was in this new reality. I would never grow old with my other. Wouldn't grow old with the one my soul loved. Would never roll over in bed and spoon his big warm back like I did every night. Would never hear his booming, loud, obnoxious laughter, or hear his groans of pleasure as he ate my food. He loved food. My children would never get to wrestle their daddy again, which was each of their favorite pastimes with him, or even say daddy at all, unless it was talking about him, not to him. So that began my journey of navigating suffering completely on my own with Jesus, an experience completely foreign to me. Like I said, uncharted territory. And so for tonight, for the purposes of tonight, I'm going to offer you my definition of suffering, just so then we can all kind of be on level playing field. So mine is really simple. It's anything that's hard for you personally. It doesn't matter if others are experiencing something way worse. I feel like we all have someone that we can say they're experiencing something way worse than us. And another definition that I really like is Elizabeth Elliot's, and hers is having what you don't want or wanting what you don't have. So I feel like with those definitions of suffering, we can all kind of generally enter into this together. But how I see it is suffering is too painful not to have gain be on the other side. But the only way that true gain happens is to suffer well. I feel like one of the greatest tragedies, I mean, at least to me, is seeing someone grow hardened and bitter and resentful while suffering, and then to stay in that place. I mean, I think that it's normal to feel those feelings as you're going through suffering, but then to stay in that place and never grow more in love with Jesus or more in love with others as a result. There's such a potential for beauty, fruit, and life. But in order for that to happen, you've got to go through it. You can't avoid it. No going over it, under it, around it. The only way to suffer thoroughly, to do it thoroughly or to do it well, is to go through it. Right after Randy died, I think it was, a matter of a few days. I remember one evening sitting around with just my dear inner circle of friends, and all of us collectively just feeling how suffocating and crushingly heavy the situation was. And I remember saying, "Oh, this is so hard, Lord. This had better be good. This was so intense, Lord. So you better have a good plan on the other end of this." And that was a saying we'd kind of throw around like in those early days or months and stuff. Sometimes we even say it now. But even the reason why I brought up the childbirth is the Lord has really used the experience of childbirth and labor in such a profound way to describe my experience of suffering that I now actually use birthing language when I speak about my journey, when I talk to other people about it. In fact, I think at this point, probably all of my friends are super tired of hearing me talk about contractions, going through contractions. I mean, they're so gracious with me and they never say it, but I feel like deep down, they're like, oh my gosh, she's saying it again. But yeah, the last 18 months have felt just like that. They felt like childbirth. The first year being hard, active labor, contraction after contraction. And to let you in a little bit more just on that experience, I'm actually going to read to you a journal entry that I did. It was about a month and a half after Randy died. And it kind of talks about, that was my first time of starting to describe it in this way, and it really resonated with me. I can be a little bit dramatic, so I'm gonna kind of share it in a little bit of a dramatic way, not because I'm trying to be like sensational or anything, but it kind of pulls you in on like just how I was feeling in the moment when I was writing this. I also read all the time to my kids out loud, so I can't really help it. Okay. This past month and a half has been the most painful I have ever experienced. I find myself breathing through it at times as though I'm breathing through a contraction. Lord, is all of this worth it? All of this laboring? Is it all for naught? Is there truly a reward good enough to make all of this a distant memory? Oh, hold my hands, Lord. Hold back my hair and knead my back as I ride this contraction. Push my hips together. Oh, this is a bad one. One after another. Kiss me, Lord. Tell me I'm so strong and can actually do it, that it'll be worth it. I'm so close. Let me squeeze your hand. Oh, rub my body. I can't do it. These contractions are too strong. I need pain meds. What? I'm at a 9? I'm almost done? How can it be? The pain is overtaking me. Oh, Lord, how you've prepared me for this. It's too marvelous for words. It's too painfully exquisite how you've already made provisions for me. Keep doing it. Hold me fast. Get creative, please. Get scandalous, Lord. Help me lift my gaze off of Randy. Lift my chin up a bit higher. So I am going to frame up this talk on relying on God and suffering in terms of 3 major contractions that I've experienced, and then how Jesus, through his Spirit, has helped me breathe through and ride each one. Also, this evening, my aim is to kind of act like a doula for you, or a labor coach, kind of helping you breathe through each wave of your own contractions and giving you insights on how the Spirit has led me to navigate this suffering season. And it's been bumpy, to say the least. It's not pretty. And I want to say this, I'm not an expert on grieving or suffering. And as I said in my bio, I'm still very much in a wilderness season. It looks different now than it did a year or so ago, of course, but I'm still in one. This is still fairly fresh. But I do feel like the Lord has led me so beautifully that I do love to share how he's met me in my wilderness, really in the hopes that you also can experience deep intimacy with him in yours. And finally, I do want to acknowledge that using birthing language, especially in a group of women, can be painful potentially in its own right. I mean, I can only imagine that there are some of you in this Zoom room who've experienced some kind of pain or loss in the area of pregnancy and childbirth. So just know that I realize that, I honor that, and I'm holding it tenderly. And I really felt like the Spirit laid it on my heart to just mention that. And I want to be sensitive to you who have pain in this area. But no, not but, and I'm also intentional with still going forward and using language that could be triggering, because I believe that the Father has some comfort for you this evening. So please press in. Okay, so actually, no, hold on. I'm gonna pray really quick. Reliance on the Spirit, man. We gotta do it. Oh, Abba, I love you. You're such a good God. You lead us through the valley. You know exactly what we need. And so, Lord, I pray tonight that everything that I say is of you, that you give me wisdom, discernment, that any words that are not of you just burn up and fall on deaf ears. But I pray for rich, fertile soil in these women's hearts. And have your way with this, Spirit. We love you. You're a good God. Thank you that we can rely on you even now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All righty. Contraction number 1. Surrendering the good gifts. This must happen if you're to suffer well. One of the first major revelations that the Spirit gave me shortly after Randy died was that while Randy was a good gift from the Father, and one that I got to enjoy and drink deeply of for 11 years, I was never guaranteed forever with him. I assumed I'd get a good 50 or 60 years, but I was only assigned 11. I've found just in this journey that paradoxically holding on to good Randy things, holding them too tightly only has produced fear and anxiety. When I've dwelt on the good things that I experienced with him for too long, I can almost get myself into like a heart frenzy of like, oh no, like how can this be? How am I going to live without him? Like, how am I going to raise these kids without him? It was so good with him. It was too good. How can this possibly be my life? But the reality is I deeply desire Randy, and he's no longer mine. I'll never have him again on this side of eternity. I don't want to be a single mom and watch my kids grow up without their earthly father. But that's the portion that I've been given. If I don't surrender the ideal, and if I don't release it back to Jesus, release back what I wish I had, there's no moving forward. There's no hope for growth. I'll be stuck in this constant cycle of despair and hopelessness, wanting something that I don't have anymore, wanting something that's not mine anymore. And there's been a major change that happens to my inner person when I allow Jesus to just gently peel my fingers off this desire to control the outcome of my life. Because that's what surrender really is, right? It's a relinquishing of control and giving it back to the one who's actually in control, because it's just a perceived control on my part. He's in control. And in that relinquishing, saying, I trust you with my life, no matter what, come what may. I mean, that's what God was asking Abraham to do when he told him to sacrifice Isaac. He was asking Abraham, do you love me above all? Even more than this good gift that I've given you? Will you trust me with this? Now, God wasn't being manipulative or abusive, and he didn't delight in seeing Abraham's anguish over this request. And we know the end of that story, he stopped him. He didn't let Abraham sacrifice his son. But what I think he was doing was reordering Abraham's loves for him, because he loved Abraham. He didn't want his son to love something too much that could perish. God is the only thing that's lasting. And he was just reminding Abraham of that. Good gifts that can be taken away cannot reign supreme in our lives. In fact, they're no longer gifts in that place. They become needs. If I view Randy as a need, I'll go crazy. I have gone crazy when I start to get into that mode again. Contentment, joy, and growth are impossible, and I won't be able to function. I won't be able to parent if I'm constantly pining over this need that's not actually a need. It's just a gift. Jesus asks a lot of his followers in this call to surrender all. But the invitation to surrender all that, in the invitation to surrender all that's precious to us, he also gives a promise that a new thing will be birthed. True freedom is the ability to hold it loosely with trust that he has a good plan for you and will restore to you goodness, whether it's circumstantial or merely at a heart level. And believe me, it's a burden lightened when you lay everything at Jesus's feet. And I'm not talking about this nice, neat laying it down like, okay, like I surrender, Randy, I surrender my children. Okay, I'm good. No. I'm talking messily, laying at his feet, crying, snotting, grasping at his feet like that's all you have left. I don't want this to have a hold on me, Lord. I give it to you. I give you all the good gifts. I give them back to you. I trust that you are good. I trust that you have good planned for me. Your ways are higher than mine, Lord. Though this doesn't make sense, you know what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing. You've known from the beginning of time that this would happen, and you know how you're going to move me forward. You love my kids more than I do. I give them to you. I give their futures to you. Thank you for the good gift of Randy. I give him back to you. Open my hands, loosen my grip. Free me, Lord. Free me from holding too tightly to this gift. So I have a question for you guys. I mean, it's going to be rhetorical. I just want you to have it in your mind. What are the good gifts that you're resisting surrendering to Jesus? Think things that have become needs for you in your life. I'll give some examples. Is it a life that you don't have that you're longing for and that you're holding on to? A husband you can't seem to find, a child you've lost, a baby you long for, a fulfilling job you wish you had, a marriage you wish you had but don't, physical health in light of some ailments that you have, close friends in your season of loneliness, children that wouldn't continue to go astray, would come back to the Lord. What are the good gifts that you're resisting surrendering to Jesus? Okay, so now it's doula time. I'm gonna come in and kind of be a labor coach with you. So with that thing that you have in your minds, I want you to breathe through that contraction. Okay, I lay this at your feet, or I lay this on the altar, like Abraham did with Isaac. Visualize rocking back and forth on your hands and knees, right in front of him, and pushing that good gift down in front of his feet, offering it to him as your sacrifice. And I promise you, he never gloats smugly when you're pushing that good gift to his feet, when you're surrendering something. Oh, he accepts it readily and lovingly, especially when it's done when it's done in faith and with a pure heart. And I promise, and he's promising you that when you do that, he's promising good for you. He is going to use it for good. It's a pleasing aroma to him, a pleasing offering when you relinquish control over a good gift. And this is not going to be a one-time thing. It's not been a one-time thing for me. I've had to do this constantly. And seriously, sometimes, and I'm not getting dramatic. This is like real time. I do sometimes have to breathe through those contractions as though I'm in labor, because sometimes the pain gets so much. And I gotta go, okay, I give those good gifts to you, Lord. I can't bear the weight of them. I gotta give them back to you. I gotta trust that you have good for me in this. You know my pain, and yet you know the good that you have in store for me. So yes, at the risk of repeating myself, surrendering the good gifts must happen if you are to suffer well. All right, contraction number 2, staying in today. Stay in today. This is something that I tell my kids all the time. And again, I think they're sick of it, but they almost daily get into this mode of asking about every little plan we have for the week. What are we doing the weekend? When are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? Even if they're like in the midst of like doing something fun, they're like, when are we going to do it again? Or if they're having ice cream, when can we do this again? I'm like, guys, stay in today. And they'll say something snarky like, Mom, it is today. Where else would it be? And I'll be like, but all you can think about is tomorrow. Just be here, guys. And am I surprised by my offspring? No, I'm not. The apple does not fall far from the tree, because I'm guilty of the very same thing. And I bet you guys are too. It's not just me. We have such a hard time staying in the moment. But now take that and kind of take it to a heavier place, and take what I said and put it in the context now of suffering and hardship. At a heart level, how hard is it to stay in the moment, to stay in that hardship or that suffering? Like I've said, there are times when my pain is so deep, the fear is so strong, or the longing is so all-consuming that I become breathless. Abba, this is too much. Abba, no, 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 I can't do it. The pain, Lord, I can't stand it anymore. Abba, I miss him so much, I can't breathe. Make it go away. Let this cup pass from me. This cup of suffering is too much, Lord. And when the pain increases like that, often the fear of the future can start to trickle in. How can I continue? It took so much to get to this place, Lord. I'm exhausted from this work. How do I maintain momentum? The thought of continuing to do so is so daunting, I can't do it. Or then other thoughts come in, and then I begin doubting the Father's care. Yes, Lord, sure, you've provided in some amazing ways, but that was then. Surely you'll move on from me and begin blessing others instead. Surely you'll tire of constantly coming to my aid. There's no way you're going to show up again for me like you have in the past. Or I'm so tired of piecemealed help. I want something stable. I want something consistent. How will you provide that moving forward? Now, staying in today is not a new problem. The Israelites were in the desert, desperate, hungry, fearing in the wilderness, and asking God, will we survive tomorrow? So a brief little teaching on manna. So they needed food. Clearly, provisions were probably drying up at that point, and they were hungry. They were crying out, and God heard their cry. He heard them. He knew that they were hungry, and so He provided them with this mysterious, miraculous food called manna. But when He provided it, was it like a week's worth supply that they had to ration out, or like a month's worth? No, it was a daily manna. And God had very clear instructions on how to manage the manna. He said, you can't live off yesterday's manna, and you can't store up manna for tomorrow because it'll get moldy. You take what you need for the day. I'm going to provide for you the manna for the day. That's all you need. And it wasn't until they started thinking about what they used to have, lamenting over these meat pots back in Egypt. They never talked about meat pots when they were complaining, but we can romanticize and be like, oh, I had all this stuff. No, when they got into that place, that's when they grew discontent. And so what can we glean from this? And I think it's finding contentment with the day's manna, with what the Lord gives you in the day. What He's given you for that day is enough to sustain you. His grace is sufficient for your hour of struggle. He withholds no good thing from those who walk uprightly. Psalm 84 talks about that. So we got to trust in the Lord for the manna for today. He did not forget to feed the Israelites, and He's not going to forget to feed you. Give Him tomorrow's worries for provision and stay in today. Tomorrow's worries are too much. It's too much. The day's work is enough. That's stressful in and of itself. We can't handle tomorrow. And so now, what does daily manna look like just practically in our context? That would be helpful maybe to talk around this a little bit. And I think every day it looks different. Just like the Israelites' manna that was completely unexpected, mysterious help that confounded even them. Same goes for us. Each day the Lord promises to provide for each of our needs in that day. And some days will look very different from others and unique to that day in ways that are personal and, again, unique to our situations. Some examples of how He's provided manna for me. I mean, it's such a wide spectrum of like huge, grandiose things to teeny little small things that are still actually quite big. And the Spirit gave me these examples because honestly, I could talk for days on the way that the Lord has provided. But these are the things that the Spirit brought to mind when I asked Him what to share. So a rainbow in the sky, a huge rainbow on a day that I was doubting His faithfulness. An encouraging text from a friend when I was feeling like a really crappy mom. Random leftovers that I forgot were in the fridge when I was stressing out over what to make the kids for dinner. Quite simply, the ability to fall asleep quickly at the end of a really overwhelming day. And this one was a huge grand scale thing, but someone offering to pay my mortgage for the year. He provides the day's manna. And what I think is the best part of our daily manna is in receiving it, we're being seen by Jesus. He says he's El Roy, the God who sees me, the God who sees me in my hour of need and sustains me and gives me the exact thing I need to continue forward, to stumble forward, to crawl forward, whatever forward. He gives you in that day exactly what you need. If as I'm talking, you're thinking like, well, how is he providing for me? What's my manna? If you're having a hard time seeing what his daily manna is, ask him. Oh, the Spirit loves those kind of questions because he loves to show you very specific ways that the Father is providing for you. Spirit loves to magnify the Father. And man, I tell you what, once you ask him and once he gives you eyes to see, you will be flooded with the ways that he does it for you, flooded with gratitude and thankfulness. Like, whoa, being seen by the God of the universe, me, teeny little me, being seen by the God of the universe, and that he provides for my needs. There's truly nothing better. There truly is nothing better than being seen by the God of the universe. So another question for you is, in what ways are you looking outside of today's manna? Either trying to live off yesterday's or fearing for tomorrow's? Some examples of this from my life. So when I'm trying to live off yesterday's was, man, it was so much easier to parent when Randy was alive, partnering with me. Why is that not my life right now? Or fearing for tomorrow's. Lord, I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. I can't keep going. There's no way I'm going to have the stamina to parent all 4 of these kids these next years moving forward. They're going to end up in jail. I don't have what I need to parent these kids. So as you're thinking about how you're looking outside of today's manna, remember, the practice of intentionally staying in today is indeed a discipline. But over time, it's begun to weirdly make me crave the day's provision in the meal. Why? Because in my time of need, I know I'm throwing myself at the feet of the one who's not only deeply compassionate toward my pain, but he also knows exactly how he's going to provide. It's supernatural comfort. It makes no sense to this world. But again, I become breathless for him in times of intense contractions, falling all over myself, throwing myself at his feet, weeping all over his feet, rubbing my face against Jesus's face, grabbing onto his neck, crying into his beard, saying things like, Jesus, I'm losing it. Help me, catch me. Okay, I'll praise you even now. You're always good. You're always good. Thank you for this high calling, this insanely hard assignment of single parenting these little souls. I can't do it without you. You will provide. You will provide for my need. Help me. Oh, I love you. I love you. I love you, Jesus. I'm falling. Okay, I love you. You've given me everything I need to do this. And you know what? Sometimes you have to say things back to him that you might not actually feel, that you might even be having a hard time believing about him, but you know it's true. So often our actions beget our feelings. It's like we kind of have to rally up our souls at times. Come on, soul. Come on. You got to believe this. Come on. The Lord's the provider. He's going to provide. He sees what you need. He sees what you need. He's going to provide. Thank you, Lord. You will provide. Got to do that sometimes because our souls get weak. The flesh gets weak. So we just got to remind ourselves of the truths that we know maybe in our minds that's true, that the Bible says is true. Okay, doula time. I want you to breathe through the contraction of staying in today. What you've given me today is good enough, Lord. It will be enough. You will not forget to feed me. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the one who trusts in you. Okay. Contraction number 3, waiting on the Lord. Wah, wah, waiting. I hate that word. Who of you actually likes to wait? No one likes to wait. My skin crawls at the idea of waiting. Instantly, I think about ways that I don't have to feel the rub of waiting. Ugh. And now, where do I find myself? In a long season of waiting without any indicator that this is going to lift. What am I waiting for? Don't know. I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, I know it's happening because there is a deep anticipation and longing for a change, which for me is an indicator that I'm right where the Lord wants me to be, waiting on him. Only he knows what I'm waiting for, and only he has any power to change this season of want into a season of plenty, even if only at a heart level. One of my favorite verses is Psalm 27, 13 through 14, and it says this: I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait on the Lord. Strength comes, but it takes time and it's messy. It's in the place of waiting on the Lord in your wilderness season where the good heart stuff, the good strengthening, the powerful stuff happens. John 12:24 says this. Jesus is saying this: truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. There's that theme again. Life's coming, but there must be a death that happens first. Stuff is growing under the surface in this cold winter of the soul that we can find ourselves. But during that winter, stuff is happening. That's what happens in a winter. Stuff kind of lies dormant, at least to our eyes. But there is stuff happening under the surface. And we know that because each spring, stuff starts to sprout up. It's like, what? This works. Like something was happening that I didn't see, but like now I'm seeing blossoms and fruits and beautiful leaves. And but again, it's like the way that God has created everything is just so genius. And it so often reflects what happens at a soul level. In the dark winter of the soul, God is at work. And that's where the good stuff happens. So a book that has actually drastically influenced how I view the waiting in a wilderness season. It is called The Wilderness, Where Miracles Are Born. And you don't have to write this down. I actually have a list of books that I have that I'll show you at the end of this. But the book and what I was so profoundly impacted by was the concept of the importance of staying in your wilderness for as long as the Lord sees fit. He's purposefully growing something. And it's so important not to try to short circuit the work that he's doing, because he's like, oh girl, you don't know what I'm doing. You don't know the strength that I'm bringing. You don't know the good that I'm growing. Just stick with it. Stick with it. Wait on me. You'll see it. You're going to see the fruit. You're going to see it. But we have to be cautious and look out for premature efforts to escape. Do not look to escape your wilderness before God's timing. We are such a pain-avoidant people, such a weight-avoidant people. I am. But pain is not necessarily, so that's an important little difference, but it's not necessarily an indicator that you need to get out of your wilderness. What are your escape routes that you have? Your little strategies of trying to avoid the pain of your wilderness? Think about those. Do you want to know mine? They're humbling, but I'll share them. But you can't judge me because it's been a hard 18 months. So some of mine are texting certain men in my community because I enjoy that, little helpless flirtation here and there. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, mind you, single men, not married men, not macking on husbands. Same for the single dudes. But again, I do that. Like if I'm feeling like not desirable or lonely, So easy to just shoot a text. That's an escape for me. Alcohol. I love the buzz that comes from drinking a little too much because, man, it does a good job numbing the pain. Um, Fantasy, not necessarily sexual fantasies, though that happens at times, but more fantasizing about a life that I wish I had, or fantasizing about what I hope happens, or how I wish this would happen, and kind of drawing and getting comfort from this fantasy that I've created in my mind as a way to kind of just avoid the present time. Or some others are making internal plans to leave my church or to move because the idea of a fresh start just sounds so refreshing, so nice. And man, it'll kind of get me out of this season. It won't. These are nothing. They leave us so empty. So yeah, there you have it. That's a lot of information on me. But an important part of waiting has been confessing these escape routes that I find myself on. It's so important to let other people in on that. Trusted people, trusted followers of Jesus that you feel safe with. And once you do that, though it's humbling, of course, like we don't like to look imperfect. But once that stuff is kind of brought to the light, it begins to slowly loosen its grip on us. And though it can still be a temptation, it slowly loses its power a little bit. I went back and I was going through my journal not too long ago, and I came across something that I said probably a year ago, and it's, "The fatigue of this season is tremendous, and the opportunity for escape becomes so tantalizing." And yes, I am still in that. There will be a temptation to escape. There it is, especially when we're in a wilderness. Oh, there's so much temptation to escape. But Scripture promises there is always a way out. Gotta just wait out that contraction. Gotta wait even for as little as 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes. And it can begin to lift. The longer you wait, and the more times you do this, the stronger you'll become. And the more able you'll be able to withstand the pain of the momentary contraction. I have such an impulsive soul at times. I want something and I want it now. But there is such a deep satisfaction in bridling that and submitting it to Jesus and not giving in. Even though there's a little death to the flesh, each time it's put under the submission to Jesus. But what have I said? What do we know? What's promised on the other end of death when we have Jesus? Life. Jesus is birthing something new if we will but trust him in the waiting. Sisters, escape routes are not a viable option. They are dead ends. They never deliver the satisfaction that we're longing for, and we know it. Reliance is not merely an option. It's not like an if needed, if you need this out, go ahead and rely on God. It could work. No, it's essential. It's survival. It's the only way I can now breathe. My dependency on him, my need for him has not changed. I'm just now way more aware of it than I ever was before. I need him every moment. But all this waiting takes some serious work. Having an active relationship with Jesus takes work and an effort on my part, just like any human love relationship. And it takes time, but man, does he deliver and show up. But man, does it take time. It's not just a week's worth of trying. It's month after month after month of seeking him, showing up, coming to him, laying stuff at his feet. And what at first may have felt like forcing your body to do something that didn't come naturally starts to become like oxygen. You'll find you can't not talk to him and spend time with him. Things that at one point were satisfying, like for me, drinking too much to numb the pain, will start to slowly become distasteful. You'll begin to run to him when you can't stand the wait, instead of giving into the temptations to flee. You'll begin saying, groaning, and crying, "Oh, Lord, this wait is so hard. Okay, you must have something so incredible planned for me because this wait is so hard. This is so hard. But wow, okay, that means you've got something good. Thank you. Help me. Hold me fast. Keep me here for as long as you see fit because I trust you. Okay, so my question for you again is, what are some of your escape routes? In what areas of your life is it agonizing to wait on the Lord? Or in what areas of your life have you not allowed yourself to wait? Okay, let's breathe through that contraction together. And this time I'm actually going to, as we breathe, I'm going to read some scripture over you, some of my favorite verses that have really carried me. Joel 2:25. The Lord will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten. Psalm 27:13 through 14. I believe I'll see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord. Let your heart take courage and wait on the Lord. Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be silent. So as I conclude for tonight, if I could just kind of encapsulate this season in like a succinct word. And I never thought I would ever say something like this, but I can in full faith say this, shakily say this. The suffering that the Lord has allowed in my life is a gift. It really is a gift because what I've received as a result. Randy dying is not the gift. Him not being with me is not the gift. But what I've received as a result of this suffering is such a gift. It's too simplistic and just not accurate to say that Randy dying was worth it. That's not true. But what the Father is giving me in the wake of Randy's death is nothing short of miraculous. It's too precious to describe and too magnificent for human words to capture. But the best way to describe it is a veil has been removed. Blinders have been taken off my eyes, and I'm experiencing life and relationship with Jesus like I've never known possible. It's what Randy experienced. I always saw him loving Jesus. I was jealous of his relationship with Jesus. I was even jealous of Jesus because Randy loved him more than me. But everything is heightened. Color is more vibrant. I feel everything more deeply. I feel joy like I've never experienced. I feel sorrow like I've never experienced. I experience laughter and humor in a new way. Everything is heightened. It's like I've almost become more human as a result because stuff's taken off. Blinders are taken off. A veil has been removed. And though it was at a very high cost, and though I never would have chosen this, I do believe the Father is moving everything toward a glorious beginning in this life and the next life. No one is exempt from suffering. The Bible tells us this. It's not a matter of if you will suffer, it's when you will suffer. It's a part of the human condition of living in a broken, fallen world. But so is his grace. That is also part of the human condition of living in a broken, fallen world. With him, with Jesus, pain, agony, and turmoil never has the final say in any painful circumstance. We serve a God who's continually working everything, all things for good for those who love him. He is a God who's always birthing life from death, always making all things new. You will suffer, and there are only two options. Suffer with Jesus and you experience life, lasting flourishing, fruit, growth, redemption, or suffering without him and experiencing death, perpetual wilting, anger, resentment, despair. There is no middle ground. You choose one or the other. There is no middle ground. So I ask you, sisters, will you submit to Jesus's perfect lordship in your life? Come what may. Will you submit to the one who knows exactly what he will allow have happen, what he will allow happen to you? while also knowing exactly how he will not only bring you through it, but he will help you flourish on the other side of it. That's the God that we serve. That's the God who avails himself to you. He offers so much to us in this broken, fallen world. He loves us so much that he sent his son to die on the cross for our sins. So we now have access to the Father through the power of the Spirit. Like, what better gift? A better gift than even my love. Because Jesus is my love. Because of the sacrifice that I would never have chosen, I am now reacquainted with my true love, Jesus, and he wants to do that for you. So I ask you, will you submit to Jesus' perfect lordship in your life, come what may? Okay, I'm going to do one last labor session with you, but this time it's going to be through a poem. A friend of mine read this when we were at our church gathering on Mother's Day, and oh man, it spoke to me so deeply because it said things that I've been feeling, but it just said it way more beautifully and way more eloquently. But it's a poem by Martha Snell Nicholson, and here it is. One of the first words is mendicant. I didn't know what that word was, but it's beggar. So just keep that in mind. Okay. I stood a mendicant of God before his royal throne and begged him for one priceless gift which I could call my own. I took the gift from out his hand, but as I would depart, I cried, "But Lord, this is a thorn, and it has pierced my heart. This is a strange, a hurtful gift which thou hast given me." He said, "My child, I give good gifts, and I gave my best to thee." I took it home, and though at first the cruel thorn hurt sore, as long years passed, I learned at last to love it more and more. I learned he never gives a thorn without this added grace. He takes the thorn to pin aside the veil which hides his face. Oh, I love that poem so much. I want to have it like tattooed somewhere on my body. I got 2 tattoos. I'm gonna put that one on my back or something. Okay, so my next little chunk was to kind of share some practical stuff. I'm not going to do that. I just kind of gave you a fire hose of information. So I'm not going to do that. But there is a document that Michelle, oh, actually, no, Michelle, you're going to pull it up. Do you want to pull it up? I'll just like briefly touch on it. I won't go into it. All right. Lisa's Essential Wilderness Disciplines. So in this, I just basically talk about spiritual disciplines that have been kind of like scaffolding for me. They've been hugely helpful. And I can't encourage you more that you gotta put some of these into practice, even 1 or 2. Just start out. And I mean, honestly, I feel like spiritual disciplines, another word for that is making yourself do what you don't want to do, but you know you got it because it's good for you. That's my, again, super spiritual like description of spiritual disciplines. But I am a living testament to the fact that this stuff is important. I never did this before. I never did this kind of stuff before the Randy situation. But man, when you get so in touch with your need for Jesus and you get so desperate, you'll just grasp at anything. And so those are super helpful. I also then gave you a list of verses that have been really huge in my life just in this season. And I think so often we hear like, hold on to the promises of God. And I always heard that, but I was like, okay, I need to be reminded of what they are. And so this is just a place for you to start in case you don't have any verses in your arsenal that you go to. And then that last chunk is just some books that I've read in the last year and a half that have been really impactful. It's not all books on loss, but it's basically just helps like tend to the soul in a really holistic way. And so I highly recommend all of that stuff. And on my screen, it's only showing a portion of it, but Michelle is also able to email this out to anybody who wants it. And so, yeah, thank you so much. That's it for the night. I hope that wasn't too much, too heavy, but again, I felt like the Spirit really had something for some of you in that. And so